Hello, guys. Just before we start the podcast, I just want to plug a little thing of ours that we've got going on. We are now live on TikTok and we are also over on Twitter and Instagram. You can find us at Talk Nonsense Pod on all of those platforms, and we'd really appreciate a follow, some likes, interaction, anything like that. We appreciate all of it. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Hello guys, and welcome back to Season 1, Episode 2 of the Cal and Dom Talk Nonsense podcast. With Cal, we have made it to Episode 2, and obviously, like I say, I'm speaking to Cal. Cal Nicol, how are you doing?
Not so bad, mate. A little bit under the weather today, but we soldier on in the name of nonsense, don't we? So not too bad.
Absolutely. And we've got a jam-packed episode for you. My name, of course, is Dominic Croft. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Cal and Dom Talk Nonsense, as well as the fact that we have a very own, my own YouTube channel, as well as the Spotify that we have. So please go on Spotify and give ourselves a 5-star review, as well as give it a listen, because, we love to talk nonsense and sometimes about football. But today we're going to talk about the Champions League, what's happened. Maybe not on the Wednesday, but Cal, you want to talk about Liverpool? We're going to talk about Spurs with a very own guest, a very first guest on this episode, Charlie SKEGGS, friend of the pod, and a very well-informed Spurs fan. We got questions in. We got a Warrington review. Again, Cal, I know you're a Warrington fan. I'll talk to you about that in a second. We've got Random Football of the Week, like usual. Nonsense Hall of Fame, obviously my favourite. And something that I didn't think would last this long, Gavin Thoughts is returned.
Clinging on for dear life.
Yes, man. It's clinging on like... what is it clinging on like, Cal? What clings on?
For dear life? We'll take that, won't we?
Yeah, I was thinking of something maybe a bit more... we'll pass that.
Yeah.
And then we'll end with the quiz. But Cal, how has your week been, first and foremost?
Good, mate. It's been action-packed. We've obviously been looking forward to the football and obviously watching Liverpool last night. I think, talking about the Champions League, these are the nights that you want to be there for. And watching Liverpool last night, absolutely superb. It was just a brilliant performance. It was good to watch Liverpool like how I remember watching Liverpool over the last few years. And I think it was... Well, I spoke to you before the pod about a couple of players that have, had a lot of stick recently who shut a few people up last night. And, people say it might only be Rangers, things like this. But it's Champions League football, mate. And, there's never an easy game in the Champions League. And I mean that. So, looking at the performance as a whole, I was made up some brilliant players. But the first person that I would like to touch on is a certain Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has had it all in the papers this last week or 2 weeks, really, since the international break, about not getting a minute for Southgate in this international period. And to come back and from a really, really tough performance at the weekend against Brighton, he didn't play well at all. Loads of criticism in the week and came through, scored an absolute stunner of a free kick and had a brilliant game, got a clean sheet and won man of the match, which obviously speaks for itself, doesn't it? I was made up for Trent. I think as soon as he scored the goal, you could see it was a big sigh of relief. And it seemed to help him a lot in his actual play afterwards. The goal went in. He celebrated, buzzing. And then, just seemed to play a bit more freely like he used to, with a bit more looking forward as opposed to worrying about this defensive criticism. He was thinking, no, if I'm attacking, like, we can kill them off without even thinking about the defending side of things. And that's exactly what happened. So, I was made up with Trent. That was probably my biggest point to make about Liverpool. But a couple of others about Kostas Tsimikas is worth a mention. He was brilliant. I think he got the Carlsberg man of the match. He was superb. And a certain Darwin Núñez, who had started for the first time in a long time. And there's still people talking on Twitter now saying that he was rubbish and he didn't score the goals and things like this. But I think if you watch the game back, you know exactly why we bought him, for reasons like this. The runs in behind and, his physicality and his speed and awareness. You think Alan McGregor was absolutely brilliant last night. And, for an older player, fair play to him. But any other day, that's a hat trick. And I think that's all he needs now is that goal, whether it's the scruffiest little goal you can ever see in your life. As long as he gets that goal now, I think he'll be absolutely fine, because some of the play, you think I think that there is our team for the season now. We played a 4-2-3-1 with Jota in behind Nunes, Diaz and Salah on either wing. But we actually started Henderson and Thiago and dropped Fabinho, which was an interesting one. But you can rotate that. I suppose that gives us a little bit more rotation in the midfield. So, yeah, just wanted to take my hat off to those three, to be honest. It was all brilliant. And we've had a lot of stick recently, Liverpool. And, yeah, thought it was really, really good and shut Rangers up. And, yeah, didn't give them much of a sniff, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the expectation of Liverpool right now is, an all-time high probably in the last 30 years, you'd say. So any sort of like small dip like you had a couple of seasons ago when you didn't have your centre-backs, it is going to be very apparent. And obviously, City will be the same if they ever lose 3 games in a row. It's looking very unlikely right now, but could because of a certain freak up front for them. But any sort of slip, especially under Jurgen Klopp. But I think the biggest thing that I could say about this Liverpool team is you're probably in your second transition as a football. Well, it's probably third really, because you had your first couple of seasons where you need to get it right. You had the second 3 seasons where you got it right. And usually teams go into transition where they have 3 seasons, and that's the biggest thing that Sir Alex Ferguson got completely right, wasn't it? Over the few seasons, It's probably why he's one of the best managers ever to live, because he went through 6 or 7 different transitions and still got it right completely every single time. Look at the likes of Jose Mourinho at Chelsea, were there for 3 seasons and then left. Arsene Wenger got it right a couple of times, but then sort of faltered in the last 10 seasons. He wasn't doing much, but this is a really pivotal stage for Liverpool right now. And I think Darwin Núñez is probably the right person up front. It's just a case of going back to, because you were trying to do the same sort of tactics with Darwin Núñez up front, and I don't think that would really suit him. We said that at the start of the season, and he got away with it with a goal in the Community Shield, but I think that this one really does suit him. I didn't watch the game personally because I was watching another one, but I watched the highlights, and if it wasn't for an Alan McGregor masterclass, he would have had 2 or 3 at least.
Exactly, and I think I'm glad that you touched on that actually about the tactics, because that was the biggest frustration for me. Was firstly the comparisons with Haaland. They're very lazy, obviously we both know that. But talking about the formation, I think we're very naive to ask. We've been playing a false 9-4-3-3 for 5 years now, and then you bring a massive, speedy, athletic number 9 in who scored goals for fun in Portugal, and you're playing the same way, and it doesn't. It's never going to work. And I think, touching on the Community Shield, it was interesting actually when he came on, when Carvalho was playing as well. When he came on as well, they sort of did drift into that where he was more of in a cam role. And that's where we found a bit of luck. And so it got to that point, you think, right, that's how we're going to play. He comes on against Fulham, exactly the same. We shift to that more dynamic approach. The crosses come in, he scores a goal, and then gets an assist for Mohamed Salah. So I think, the red card didn't do him any favours, did it? But I think that last night is something really to build on for Darwin now. And I think he really, really needed it. And I made up for him, because, listen, you can say what you want about the chances and whether he scores or he doesn't score, but we'll see. I think if he continues to play like that, I think he'll be absolutely fine, and I'm excited to watch him more in the future.
Yeah, and the last point I'll say is, I'm not trying to compare it, but look at Thierry Henry in the first season in the Premier League, did nothing, and he became one of the best ever. So don't judge him from the first season. I think next one we'll go to is obviously Tottenham Hotspur, the other team. We'll briefly touch on them until we go to Charlie in the next sort of segment. But I think Spurs, I don't think the sort of hysteria over Spurs and how well Arsenal are doing. I think the media has a sort of a stronghold on Spurs right now, and I don't think that it's really deserved, to be honest with you. I think they've only lost 1 this season. But Al, any sort of little thoughts before we jump onto the our first guest of the pod?
Yeah, I agree in the main part, but I would say that I do feel like they're being talked about up there, but I do really think that they're riding the luck. And
Oh, really?
Obviously, they found out last night that it's hard to beat some teams, and Sporting Lisbon the other week, they were beaten by them. They scored 2 in the last 2 minutes and beat Spurs, Sporting Lisbon. So I think they can be found out, and obviously we found out in the North London derby, which we'll touch on with Charlie. I'm sure he'll be delighted to hear us say that. But I think they'll be okay. I'm sure they'll be right up there. But yeah, I'm not as convinced as some maybe this season for Spurs.
Yeah, so like you say, I do. So I feel like I'm being a hypocrite right now straight away, but I do think they're getting away with a couple of games. But I think they are a better team than some other people suggest. But what we'll do right now is we'll quickly jump into our first interview of the podcast. Charlie, SKEGGS, and Cal, I guess you're going to do the intro for that one, so take it away.
Right, so we are here now live with a good friend of mine, a good friend of the pods. It is Mr. Charlie SKEGGS, a musician based in Liverpool who comes from North London, who's also a big, massive Tottenham fan. Charlie, how you doing, mate? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm right. Good to see you guys. Happy, cheers for having me on. As I say, obviously talking about the lovely Spurs, we'll get onto that. But I have been better, but obviously happy to see you guys today. So we'll start off on a good note, obviously.
Brilliant stuff, mate. I'll have to bring you right down to earth now, though. We'll start talking about Tottenham. So just talking about last night, really, to start off with, what were your thoughts on the performance against Frankfurt?
I honestly, I could say, because I could go on a massive bashing spree, and I'm not going to, obviously, because it's still kind of raw. But with a level head, I'd say I was never worried. I think that it probably came down to the fact that this is an issue Spurs are going to have if they don't change their tactics quickly, which is what someone on the studio last night said, which was that it's all well and good sitting back against, big teams like your Cities, your Liverpools, and your Real Madrids if we get to play them in the Champions League. But it's like, when you come up against teams like the level of Frankfurt, no disrespect to them, we need to take it to them. We've got, even though maybe not bedded in yet, a really good front three there who can all score goals. And they're a bit toothless at times. And I think that I'm not going to lose my head and say, it's all over. But it seems to be a kind of typical Spursy thing that if we have a little knock in form, it does sometimes have a knock-on effect. Like the North London derby, which I know we'll probably talk about in a bit. But it's like, it's the Spurs thing of like, if we lose a touch of confidence, it's kind of infectious. And I'm just hoping that Conte, with all his experience he's got, can knock that out of them, because it does just seem to be an inherent thing that we have. And last night, it showed that. It was like we were capable of a goal, but a lot of it, we were just always just missing something at the end. And I think a lot of that is nerves around this, just irk on our back all the time about being Spursy.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I remember watching the highlights when I got in last night. I was watching Liverpool last night, but went and saw the highlights when we knew we was getting you on the pod, and looked at the stats as well. I think the stats was the biggest thing for me looking back at it. Even possession, less goal attempts, less shots on target. And the question that I probably want to ask is, looking at Spurs this season, I think we mentioned it in a previous pod, they seem to be getting away with results. Obviously, up until the last two, they seem to be just scraping over the line, just having enough to get over the line, get the result. So does it seem like the looks ran out a bit for Spurs?
I think you're dead right. I'm not just saying, it's always good to say things in hindsight, but I've been saying it throughout, especially the Chelsea game. I think the Chelsea game was luck completely, because that game, as you know, there's different elements to it, whether it was the bloody hair pull that Romero did or lots of different things. That was a prime example, and it kind of was two sides of a coin, which was, on the one side, you're dead right. I've always said we're not playing at our best. We were scraping results, and maybe the other side of that coin is maybe that's what the good teams do. While they're not necessarily completely playing their best football, good managers and good teams do just grind out results. And I remember saying to my lovely fiancée, Beth, we were watching the game of last night, I was like, this could be the making of what Spurs are. Because I say Conte is quite a pragmatic coach in that sense. He does sit back. He likes the counter-attack. He understands we've got that. But I also said, but we are riding our luck a bit. And the Chelsea game was certainly paving over a load of cracks. And I swear to God, we were so lucky we dodged City. I was like, the fact that game got rescheduled, I was like, because I think Arsenal did what City probably would have done even worse, honestly.
I listened to a podcast with I don't know if you listen to many podcasts with Tottenham, but Flav from the Fighting Cock. I
do listen to it sometimes. I haven't caught the recent ones, but I do listen to it sometimes,
he talks about Spurs, and he talks about the potentially Conte going to a 3-5-2 rather than a 3-4-3. Do you think that would suit Spurs better, or do you think a 3-4-3 would?
No, I think you're right. I think that the three at the back, what it's clear is we've got three centre backs, or I should say, we've got three defenders. We don't have five defenders, I should say. Like when I look at the other two, Romero's a liability, but he shows some promise going forward. But to me, in the derby, it proved that he's just got a stupid head on him. And I think the other side, Perisic, he's got a lot of experience, but he hasn't really shown much to me about being a world-class defender. So I think Conte's kind of relying on the fact that Eric Dyer's come good for a bit. Romero, even though young, quite hot-headed, he's showing signs of being a very, very good defender. He does put the shits at me sometimes, but I think he is a really good defender. And that third position, I think they're going to rotate it between that Longley and Davis and that. But I think, in answer to your question, I do think we probably should be playing three at the back and maybe trusting those three and having a sort of five midfield, because I think that the players we've got are what seems to be this new type of fullback is attacking players, and maybe, they shirk sometimes a bit of defensive responsibility. But I think he's better off doing what you said. I think he's better off going for more of a sort of 3-5-3 instead of, because the attacking options are fine. And I do think the middle and the two are a bit options as well. So,
So you mentioned, we mentioned Arsenal and the North London derby. We touched on it a little bit there. I watched it live and I thought Arsenal were brilliant. And do you know what? I did think that Spurs came into the game. I thought they, probably give it to Arsenal for a point in that game. But looking back on it as a result, because we know how big of a game it is for both sets of fans, rightly so, it's a big derby. How detrimental do you think that result and the fashion that it happened, how detrimental do you think that'll be in terms of how the season pans out now?
I don't think it matters at all. I mean, I'd like to think so, because and I say this because, obviously I follow, like everyone does, I follow all the outlets and what people are saying. And it's laughable, really, because it is a mirror image of what happened at the back end of the season, except, and I say this with a dig, our game got us to top four. Their game, bought them, granted 7 points. It's identical. We were at home, 3-1. They had a player sent off for petulance. It's like, I get it. Obviously, you can only go by the most recent game. And obviously, I'm not happy by that. But this whole talk of, and that's what I kind of have the issue with, is that it's not that big a deal. We've lost one game this season against the team that are sitting top of the league. I'll happily give Arsenal their due. They're playing well. But what I bet is, I better say this, it shouldn't be detrimental. It should just be one game, because at the end of the day, Arsenal are at home. Of course, it's the game of the season where they're really going to get revved up for it. And obviously Spurs were toothless. I didn't like it. And obviously I think, it's all ifs and buts. If he doesn't get that red card, I suspect we have a different game. But for some reason, he got the red card, and it's a proof of the pudding that we did capitulate. We did. As soon as he had that player off, I thought, why are we acting like a bunch of kids again? We could still just hold the ball up, and try and maybe nick a draw at 2-1. But it was pretty much over by then. So I don't think in the long run it is going to be I don't think it's going to be too detrimental, unless it, like I say, the game last night was an indicator of we can't let our confidence get knocked like that, because we are a very good team, But we seem to be the last of a team in a certain echelon that still haven't done it. There's teams that I think I do put us in the group of the top teams. And the fact of the matter is we just can't seem to get this thing off our back about winning something. And once we do, I think we'll be laughing, because I think the confidence will ride us through.
Definitely. I agree with you there, mate. Well, Charlie, that wraps up our questions for you there, mate. Thank you very much for your insight and your time. Send my best to Beth as well. It's great to see you, mate.
Cheers for having me on, guys.
We'd love to have you on again at some point, because we can pick your brains about Spurs, and not even Spurs, just you can give you random football, your nonsense Hall of Fame, give
me some time to prepare. Send me give me a little bit of time to prepare, and I'll make sure I get all my good candidates for all that in as well, for sure. But cheers for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you, Charlie. See you later, mate.
Speak to you in a bit. Nice one, guys.
And thank you to Charlie for coming on the podcast. And like we say at the end of that, he's always welcome on the podcast, and we do appreciate anyone that comes on here. We're going to have Dan in a second after this question, talking about Warrington. But first of all, Kyle, we've got a question of the podcast from Ryan, friend of the pod. He asked, would you rather see your greatest rival, Everton being yours, relegated, or win a League Cup? Should we? It's a bit of a non-question for you, isn't it? I think.
I think it's probably because last season, it pretty much happened, didn't it? Like, not far off happened. So,
do you want last season to happen? Essentially, I think that's the.
Do you know what? It's one of those things. I think looking at it properly, honest answer, I'd always want to win a trophy. You know, I'd want to see my team win a trophy. It would be nice, if both can happen. But I don't think I'd ever want to see their misery more than our success. I think that's.
Should I change the question for you then? I think that would you rather see Everton get relegated or win the World Cup? Because that's a bit more relevant, isn't it, this season?
Oh, the World Cup. Oh. I want to see us win the World Cup. Yeah, I think this is what I mean. I think it might be a mentality thing with certain fans, and I might mean this is a dig. Actually, I was gonna take it away from that, but I think there are certain fan bases that do like to pile on misery and love to see the downfall of the rivals more because they don't really have a chance of doing anything for themselves, and so I don't really feel like I'm in that boat, and I don't think many of our fans are. So I think I'd much rather see us just keep adding to our trophy cabinet and let them crack on doing what they're doing, especially with Everton. I don't really care too much for Everton. It'd be a funny little thing for a few weeks, and then I don't know. I think I might miss the derbies. I don't know.
You don't want apathy for a team. I remember when we were in League One, and Burnley were in the Premier League, and we played a League Cup game, and nobody was asked. And I think that's the worst point of a derby we've ever had. Yeah. I think they beat us, but it was just like, okay, you're 2 divisions in between. And when we were in the Premier League for I support Blackburn Rovers, by the way, and Burnley are their rivals. If people didn't know, that when we were in the Premier League for so long in the sort of 90s and noughties and getting up to 2011, Burnley were pretty much irrelevant to us, and it didn't really mean anything. And we won a cup and a league in that time. And I think to answer the question, I think I definitely would rather win a League Cup. Jesus, like I've never seen us lift a trophy in our lifetime. So to just see us, once actually. In fact, it was the first game I ever saw, the Carling Cup final. Yeah, won that one in 2002. But I wasn't really old enough to properly take it in. But yeah, to win a League Cup, I think would be the one. To be honest with you,
I'd love to get an Everton fan's opinion on that question. By the way,
reverse it. Do we know any Everton fans?
I don't want to.
Okay. I don't think Burnley fans, but again, like what am I gonna have on the podcast? Yeah, so Burnley are doing all right in the Championship this season. Like, okay, again, I don't really care. But next on our schedule, we've got it written down here, is Warrington, Cal. And obviously last week you talked about how you went to the Warrington game, and we had this sort of debate about how it was compared to a normal match that we went to, and we ended up getting quite a bit of traction from the Warrington fans. Obviously, Will Stanaway, is that? Yeah, it was the goal Stanaway. Yeah. We got some follows from them, and it was a weird day because I've never really thought about Warrington until that day. And obviously, we'll have Dan talk about the game in a second. But Cal, what's the game of the week?
Yeah, so it was a big one, really. And, I was gutted I couldn't make it, to be honest. But it was Warrington Town versus Warrington Rylands. And, it's a massive, massive derby. And Rylands were promoted into the Northern Premier last season. So, it was the first fixture against each other. Massive, massive game. It was the highest attendance of the season. I think they pipped 1,500 at Cantilever Park. Wow. And apparently it was an absolute barnstormer. It was all going off, good and bad. From what I heard of it, Dan will explain it. I just want to add as well, thank you to Dan Chilton, who I go to the Warrington games with. He did a match report. He went to the game and give us a little match report how things went, and you'll hear that in a minute. But yeah, it was an absolute barnstormer, and all sorts went on, and you'll hear all about it in there. But yeah, I found some of it hard to believe, but it's very non-league, I must say. So, so I think, should we introduce him now and get him on?
Just a question first, though. Who do you, out of the Warrington teams, because obviously there's two, like which one do you support?
Oh, I'm Warrington Town. There's only one team in Warrington.
Are they the bigger side, would you say?
Yeah, well, yeah. There's all sorts of little political arguments that I don't want to get into. So, I think I'll just stick with, there's only one team in Warrington.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are they in your shadow? Are they just a small team in Warrington? Is that what you did?
Yeah, well, until the 90th minute, I don't know. But
Oh,
yeah,
no.
thankfully we was okay. So yeah,
Right.
we'll introduce now. We're going to go over to Dan Chilton, who was live at Cantilever Park on Tuesday night, watching Warrington Town versus Warrington Rylands.
Evening, lads. Loving the pods. Thanks for having me on. So last night I went to a Warrington derby, Warrington Town versus Warrington Rylands. This is the first time the two teams have met in over 40 years, and by no means did it disappoint. After a very dominant first half performance, Rylands went into the break 2-0 up. Prior to the game, I was told that Rylands had a midfielder in net, as the normal goalkeeper received a call up for Wigan under-21s that morning. The second half was met with an early goal from the Yellows, who seemed a much more competitive side. The game went on, and in the 80th minute mark, it was now 3-1 to Rylands. The last 10 minutes of the game is what changed it all for me. The constant atmosphere sparked another side to Yellows missed in the 80 before. A deflected goal partnered with the 93rd minute equaliser seen both teams take a point. A cold night soon heated up after the final whistle as Bo Dixon received the red card and Rylands fans made their thoughts known. Thanks again, Cal and Dom, for having me on. I hope to link up with Cal to visit Cantilever Park soon in the near future. Enjoy, lads.
Thank you to Dan Chilton, obviously the John Motson of our podcast at the minute. Always welcome on the podcast, as well as Charlie from before. We do appreciate both of them. And again, guys, thank you very much for coming on. And always welcome to talk about Warrington, guys. If anyone has thoughts about Warrington Town FC versus Rylands FC, if you were there, please give us a comment down below. And always welcome any questions and gammon thoughts and nonsense Hall of Fame. The like, apart from the Spotify. I don't think you can comment on there.
I don't think you can. No.
But Cal, we are coming to which is becoming our favorite segment of the week. Have you got yours ready?
I am ready.
Here we go.
Random Footballer of the Week.
Zat Knight.
Juan Pablo Angel.
Random Footballer of the Week.
And that is our random footballer of the week. But obviously, last week we had a random footballer of the week. Cal, who were the two that we had?
Well, last week we had Andre Dizou.
Yes.
And Pascal Chimbonda.
Can you give us the voting? How many voted and what was the percentage?
Just getting the percentages up now. But I do want to say I was fairly certain that I think we knew who was going to win it just as soon as it came out. And sadly, I don't know if you saw by my reaction, I think we're going to go in one way again this week. What a player he is, by the way. Juan Pablo Angel. So we're just getting these up now. Go to our poll over on Twitter.
Obviously, I did have two because last week we had Pascal Chimbonda nearly twice. So I had to have two players up for grabs, and Pan was second.
Yeah. Right, so we have 80% of the vote went to Pascal Chimbonda,
and there he is. There he is, absolutely, there he is. And congratulations to Pascal Chimbonda, who makes it with Amiyazaki this week on our random footballer of the week. Look at that Polaroid picture. We've chosen out of the Tottenham, Sunderland, Wigan, and Spurs. We chose the Spurs one because obviously he had a terrible time at Spurs, and I think he even wanted to leave after like 5 games. So. Or maybe that was Sunderland. I can't remember which one it was.
It was also becoming a bit Wiggany, wasn't it?
Very Wiggany, and he almost chose another Wigan player. To be honest with you,
yeah. I'll tell you what would be brilliant though is when we get to the point where there's 11 on there. Let's see if we can get a nice little 11.
Yeah. Well, that's an absolute. Write it down. This is how we get. So I think our next segment is another one that is going to stick around in its Nonsense Hall of Fame. But before we talk about our Nonsense Hall of Fame, we've got to talk about who won last week. Now, Cal, Have you got that up as well?
I've got that one up as well. It was
Who was
a
it
little
between?
bit tighter last week. We had Forest Green owner Dale Vince, who was battling out against Mark Lawrenson, who'd just been sacked by the BBC. And it was a very, very tight one. And with 60% of the votes, Mark Lawrenson nailed it.
And there he is, middle of the screen, looking lovely next to Harry Maguire. And I think I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to edit these on the screen if we get to like 10, 12 games in. And they're just going to, how much are we going to do? The biggest vote gets the biggest frame. Is that how we're going to do it?
I think that's how it's going to have to be, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Cal, who is your nonsense Hall of Fame this week?
Right. So this was absolutely easy as this week. I think a lot of people will be thinking the same. My nominee this week goes to the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury, who has wound probably, I'd say 90% of the country out of their minds this week with this ongoing drama with Anthony Joshua and, you know, the promoters. I could have put all of them in there, to be honest, but obviously you can only pick one. So I had to go with the one who ran his mouth all over Twitter and Instagram. And you just think, I don't know. I'm not going to go too deep into all the negotiations and things like that, but I'm sure everyone listening knows exactly what happened. And yeah, he's just exhausted me. So it's got to go to Tyson Fury.
Really? So I knew that he was coming into boxing, but I didn't know he was going to Tyson Fury. And as soon as you said that, I thought, yeah, I mean, it's the perfect summarization of how nonsense it has been. And look at us above us. If you're on Spotify, I'm sorry, but it says talk nonsense. That is exactly what he's done. And I think that's the perfect summarization of nonsense Hall of Fame. Will he get there with Mark Lawrenson and Harry Maguire? It's looking like a very whiteboard right now.
There's got to be a correlation there.
Christ, and to be honest with you, as soon as, because we talked about this before, and as soon as he said that, I was like, well, Christ, I've just got to think one now, because that one, because he backed down on his decision, didn't he? And then now he's back talking again with it, you know, like you say.
It's pretty much what happened. Was obviously it was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. And the reality of the situation, I think it was never actually on. And I think that's the biggest frustration for boxing fans, is that we fall for it every time. And I think it's the third time now where we've gone, surely we're not going to fall for it again. But they're still saying it's not 100% off. And it's exhausting. It's either fight or don't fight. I'm going to leave them to it now. And if one day I get a little notification on my phone, it's a poster with them two on it, happy days. But I still wouldn't even count my chickens. So, yeah. Tyson Fury, I hope you get on that wall soon, because...
Maybe if he gets on the wall, then maybe he can offer you a fight.
Oh, Christ, I don't know about that. I think I'll leave him to that.
Man versus mouse sort of situation. I think that...
Why is he 6'9"?
Yeah, but...
No, thank you.
Would you take him on stilts?
Oh, yeah, with stilts on. I'd just have boot him in shins a few times.
Two-footed, maybe.
Yeah, finish him off.
Yeah.
The bigger they are, harder they fall. Dom, who is your nominee for the Nonsense Hall of Fame?
Right, so I chose this today because I saw a tweet from him about 6 months ago when Nottingham Forest won the playoff final. This predates that. So when Neil Warnock sent my nomination, who we'll talk about right now, he said that this player will either be a Premier League player or a non-league player. Okay, so my nomination is Jed Spence because of the way he acted when they won the playoff final.
Cigar in mouth.
Cigar in mouth, bev in hand, and he quoted Neil Warnock saying something like, "Look at me now," basically. And I don't think even Neil Warnock said anything bad. He said, "You're going to be a Premier League player or a non-league player." So he clearly shown the talent in you, and I think it was just a kick up the ass that you needed, to be honest with you. But I think since then, he's played... Guess how many minutes football he's played since then?
I cheated. I do know this. I saw it before. Yeah. It's 1 minute of football, is it?
1 minute of Premier League football he's played since then, since signing for Spurs. And I think that is complete and utter slap in the face, pie in the face, however you want to phrase it. And I think that's complete and utter nonsense on his behalf. I think the fact that he's just had an absolute, like I say, pie in the face from Conte, and he clearly hasn't shown him that he is Premier League quality right now. And I think last season, I don't think he had a great season, but I think he was riding on a wave slightly. He rejected a loan to a Championship team apparently, so I sort of respect that a little bit. You want to fight for your place, but since that tweet has happened, he has played 1 minute of professional football. Complete and utter nonsense. Now, guys, our poll will be on Twitter today, Thursday, the 6th of October. Just got the months wrong, but they'll be on for 3 or 4 days, I'd say. Please follow us on Twitter. As you can see underneath me right now on YouTube, on Spotify, it is at Talk Nonsense Pod. And leave a comment below who you think the Nonsense Hall of Fame will be, and we'll add it to the vote. You know, we can sort of figure that out, sort of figures wise, can't we, Cal?
Yeah, I think so. Give us
But
a
Cal,
chance.
who are the 2 nominees this week?
The 2 nominees this week, we have Tyson Fury and Jed Spence. Should be
Absolutely.
a cracker.
So, guys, get voting. That'll be much appreciated. Now, Cal, this never dies. This absolutely never dies. We are on our 5th week of the pod, 2nd of the main series. I'd say. I said that it wouldn't last the first week, and my God, it's not dying.
It'll probably outlast us.
It's just like Gianluigi Buffon in professional football. It's not retiring. It's Gammon Thoughts. Are you ready? Gammon Thoughts. It's not quite Brexit, but if you hear in the crowd, then you'll want to exit. It's Gammon Thoughts. Yeah. Maybe we should get someone to.
I think
do it.
Having Charlie on the show and his musical talents, I'm definitely gonna have to have a word with him about figuring something out for that little jingle.
What did you say? Is my singing up right? Wait 1 second.
Oh, we can still have your singing.
You ready?
Oh, am I ready again? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Gammon Thoughts. No,
okay. No. We'll leave that. But we do have a big, fat, juicy Gammon Thought this week, don't we?
Yes, we do, and it's from Rye, friend of the pod, like we say always. It's a proper Gammon Thought. Just because you support a big team doesn't mean you deserve to be in the Premier League. For example, Sunderland to be there in the Prem. No, you need to beat everyone and get the points. That's literally how it works.
I like it. I understand it. I think it's a tough one because it definitely qualifies as a Gammon Thought for me because you hear it so often in the pubs and when you're talking about teams like that, especially when around cup time when you see, you get drawn against a Sunderland or a Portsmouth. But I think, I don't know, when you see those teams, especially the ones when you were young, I think I could name a few right now. So you've got Portsmouth, Charlton, Bolton, teams like that aren't doing so well anymore. And I think they were such good teams, and I have fun watching them. And I'll probably never see them in the Premier League again. You don't know, but it doesn't seem very likely at this point. And so I think I do side with the Gammons a little bit with because I do understand that there are some teams that you think, oh yeah, they were a great team and I enjoyed watching them back in the day. What's happened to them and things like this. But at the same time, it's very true. You look at some of the teams that are coming up for the first time and teams that you haven't seen before. And yeah, fair play to them. So yeah, you've got to work hard. Of course you have. Everybody knows that. So I understand it. I'll give it a Gammon Thought. I'll give it a thumbs up. But there is an argument to it.
Oh, really? Because I fully agree with this one, to be honest with you. Just I think the fact that I don't support a team that's in the top 6 or a team that is a city, I think I do agree with this one because just because somebody decides to live in a place doesn't mean that your team is the best. That's all I need to say, I think. Sunderland are a huge team, obviously, and they got a big following. They probably have bigger backing, but just because the people who, I mean, we all watched that Sunderland till I Die documentary, and absolute, they're gammons, to be honest with you. Absolute, getting the techno on the loudspeaker just to
louder,
get the crowd going.
Louder, turn it up.
yeah, exactly. So
honestly,
So I completely agree with that Gammon Thought, and Guys, get your gambling thoughts in because I am one for keeping this on. Has it run its course, Cal?
I think it speaks for itself. It hasn't, and I don't think it will run its course. No, I think it's just going to keep going, which I'm fine with, and I enjoy it. I like the debate. I like where it's going as a feature, to be honest, because at first I think it was more of a quick laugh, whereas now we're actually thinking about it and discussing it. And like this one tonight, there are, sides to it, and yeah, I enjoy it. I think I'm all right with it being there.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that our nonsense talk is becoming a bit more scheduled and a bit more, sort of formulated, which is, are we becoming a podcast or are we just, what is happening here? I don't understand what's the crack here.
I think it might be coming a podcast.
Shit, like, what the fuck is going on? At first, we're just two pissheads that it's just talked on a podcast, and now we're actually got segments and everybody talking, and we got guests and questions. So, like we always say, we appreciate the questions and always comment below. Like the YouTube says right now, please leave a comment below. We do appreciate them all. And Cal, next week I've actually got a gambling thought, so I will tease that one for you. So it's not dead. It's not dead.
January I'm just convinced.
He's playing his 43rd game.
Yeah, it won't.
Okay, so next up, we've got the quiz. Cal, have you got your questions ready? Because I know that I messaged you today and I was like, oh, we've not got the questions ready. I've got my 3. Have you got yours?
I've got my 3. I'm very excited. And going off last week, I think it's going to be another tight one. I've got a few tough ones. Got one nice little easy one in the middle. But, yeah, so we are 1-1 from last week. The format last week, I asked you first, would you like to change that or would you like to keep it as it is?
Well, what format are we doing? Because obviously we drew last week, but are we just keeping it sort of the same format? If I get 2 right and you get 1, is it 3-2 next week? Or we?
Yeah,
I think we'll do it like that. We'll do it like that.
Yeah.
Keep it a summary. I'll have a graphic up next week because I did forget. It's a tight schedule, and you know what?
It's all right.
It's all right. We got full-time jobs as well as this. But guys, if you've got any questions as well, I don't know how we'd actually do that. To be honest with you, for this quiz, I don't think that would actually work, would it?
Unless if we could get someone on and do a quiz live with them, and then we put them on the spot, we could do something like that. Anyway, I think
maybe that would work if we get a guest on. Maybe next week.
Ooh, guest next week.
Oh,
so we say guest next week.
We'll leave that to the end of the pod. Cal, you can go first.
And ask you.
Yes.
Okie doke. Are you ready?
No.
No, we won't be.
Never.
Right. Here we go. You have 1 minute to answer this question.
Oh, yeah. We've got a 1 minute time limit. Let me get a pen.
There were quite a few last time, weren't there?
Yeah, they were like, I still got it wrong. Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Right. Who won the Football Writers Association Footballer of the Year in the Premiership's first ever season?
I've got a minute, have I?
Yeah, so I'll give you
So
till
obviously-
38.
So that's the 92-93 season. Yes, it is. By the way, if you you said the first season, of the
I want to win.
Oh, right, okay. United won that season, so I will go with Teddy Sheringham.
So you've got to remember this is Football Writers as well, so they're all little different ones, aren't they? You're wrong. It was Chris Waddle.
Sheffield Wednesday at the time, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. But that's why I said United won it, so it's got to be someone not from United. And I thought Sheringham. Oh, okay, great.
Nil point.
Good start as ever. Cal.
Yes.
How many teams were in the first ever World Cup?
Oh, God.
And you've got a minute.
Jesus Christ. Uruguay won it, didn't they? Like that says anything.
There's one. Hold on.
Yeah, there's one.
Who were in that final? I've got a timer here, guys. By the way, we're on.
Oh
20
yeah, it's going to be a
The
random
first
number.
ever World Cup was in 1930. By the way, yeah, probably around the same time as Everton won the first trophy, last trophy even. I ruined the joke. You've got 20 seconds, Cal. So it's just a case of giving me a number.
Yeah.
15 seconds.
32.
Stop. Right. Bit of a trick question. There was 13.
Eh? You wait
There was-
till next week, mate. You're getting it next week.
So there was 4 in one group and 3 in the other 3.
Right.
And there was Argentina, Chile, France, Mexico, Yugoslavia, Brazil, Bolivia, Uruguay, Romania, Peru, USA, Paraguay, Belgium. There was only 3. There's 1, 2, 3 European squad sides essentially, and the rest were from the Americas.
Absolute travesty of a question, so we'll move swiftly on.
You said football is- what is it?
Right. This
Okay.
is my easy one for you.
Yeah, that was a difficult one, by the way. That was but you could have guessed.
Oh, was
it?
it?
Yeah, that wasn't easy.
Oh, what an odd number.
Oh, what? Yeah. Seriously,
right.
I thought it was 12 when I first went for the question. I was like, oh, it's 13. That's even better. Okay.
Right. So this one is your easy one. Premier League goalkeeper who plays for Manchester City, Edison. I need his shirt number.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Well, it's clearly not 1, is it? I don't know. I don't know this. How is this easy? I suppose it is easier than the rest. Fucking hell. Who are the goalkeepers? Does that even give me a clue? Zach Steffen isn't there. He's at Middlesbrough, is he? I think so. They got the guy that they just bought. Usually the goalkeeper number is 1, 12, and like 30. Edison is number. I can't even. To be honest with you, the issue is City is so boring to watch, and Edison never has the ball.
Yeah.
But we never see it. So
I
I think
genuinely, I didn't know what number he was. I just
I'm
went
gonna
through a
guess
few teams.
number. What, you went through a few teams just to get the weirdest?
Yeah, I was just like, which
Goalkeeper
one?
number.
What one's a bit dodgy? Yeah. They've got a
I'm
few
gonna
City, by the way.
I'm gonna go with number 14.
Incorrect. It's number 31.
Oh, fucking hell!
What a weird number. Hey, and also, this isn't part of the quiz. What's Phil Foden's squad number?
Is it like 40?
47.
47. Was it
So
Yaya Toure that was 42?
Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah, that
it's
was it.
strange. They're bringing that Serie A style.
That was my easy question, was it?
Yeah.
Edison's number.
Well, he just plays every week, doesn't he?
I know, but like you know, okay, that's okay. Fuming.
We're quite happy
Raffle,
now.
Common Dom L. That's fine. Ratioed, absolutely ratioed. Right, Kel. Who was England's goalkeeper in the last 2014 World Cup game?
Oh God, because it's not going to 2014. Was 20. It's going to be the one that. Oh no, it's not, is it? Because 2014. I can't even remember 2014.
Exactly.
Did we go out in the group stage? Did we get through?
Do you want me to give you that
God.
as an answer? I don't know. Like,
Oh God. Was 2010 was when Frank Lampard hit the Germany?
yeah, that was the
2014, we played Uruguay in the group, didn't we? And that was the game, wasn't it? Wasn't Uruguay the last game?
You've got 20 seconds. Name a goalkeeper. You've got about 5 to choose from, haven't you?
Jack Butland. Oh.
Sorry, Cal. It was Ben Foster.
Oh no, I like Ben Foster as well.
It wasn't against Uruguay. We lost against them in the first game. It was against
Was
Costa
that
Rica.
the first? Yeah, Costa Rica was in the group, and Uruguay.
Yeah, it was 0-0, and we were out in the group stage in
It
Brazil.
was, yeah.
So I honestly thought that, I mean, in terms of our easy questions so far, they're not easy, are they?
No. Well, in fairness, they must have been last week because it was 1-1 at this point.
Do you want a 0-0?
Didn't it? I think it looks that way. Parking the bus. Right.
Absolutely. Oh no! So this is an easy one, is it?
To be fair, this isn't that bad because he's
Okay.
he's a Premier League manager from
Kind of 90 plus
from
30.
years ago.
Okay.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Which
Go on.
3 Premier League clubs has George Graham been manager of? I
George
need
Graham.
all 3.
George Graham. Is he the Arsenal guy? Arsenal?
Correct.
Spurs?
Correct.
Fucking random one, this one, isn't it? It's got to be a random one, isn't it? So he was at Arsenal first. Was he? Or was he at Spurs first? This is deep 90s knowledge, isn't it? Because it's got to be someone. Wimbledon.
Incorrect. I'll give you one more guess.
I thought that was a decent guess, to be fair. George Graham. West Ham.
Incorrect. It was Leeds United.
When was he?
He was knocking around the door. I've not even got the dates here. I've just got the team. But yeah, Arsenal, Leeds, and Tottenham. So you did well there, to be honest. I thought the Arsenal Tottenham thing might have stumped you a bit, but it was notable, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, the third one. Yeah, that's a great question. To be fair, when was he Leeds boss?
I don't know. I've not got the dates here.
Oh, okay.
At some point around that
time. Right. So you can clinch it in the 93rd minute here. Or we could do a 0-0.
I've got a free kick. I'm lining it up.
You're who are you in the who if you were to choose one free kick player to score, who would it be?
I'm so biased, but I just
you've won that question. Well done.
Yeah. Trent. I'll be Trent. Here's this for irony. World Cup final in Qatar. Trent Alexander-Arnold, 93rd minute, 0-0 in the final. Here I am. On with the question.
Okay. You are. He's on the bench, probably. Who was the first and only Premier League player to score from, can you guess a country? Tanzania.
I've skied it over the crossbar. Tanzania.
Right, I'll start the count now.
That's really tough.
I thought this is quality, to be fair. I didn't even know they still thought of it today.
No clue at all of any form.
Do you want me to give the year when he scored?
Oh, God, that'll probably make it worse. Go on.
2019.
Oh, okay.
You've got 38 seconds.
2019. Tanzania. Oh. I've got a feeling he's going to have... I just wouldn't have expected him to be Tanzania.
You've got 15 seconds, so you're going to have to name someone.
Oh, my God. Abel Hernandez.
No.
Of course it's not.
He also scored. Yeah, I mean, that's wrong, to be honest with you. He also scored in that season's League Cup final. It's Mbwana Samata from Aston Villa.
No.
Do you remember Samata? What Samata were you? You know, remember that little joke?
I don't remember anything about that fella. Now it's 0-0.
14 times, scored 1 goal in the 1920 season, and also scored against City in the League Cup final when they lost 2-1.
I made up for it.
Carl, what do you think about 0-0?
I thought it was tough. Do you know what? I think
They're all
they were,
gettable.
they were decent questions.
They were never
I'm not-
like what Dick says is like in Samata.
Oh my
Was
god.
it?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, moving on. No, that was good. I think it's just a case of we've just got to sharpen up, haven't we? I think we've been poor anyway. Even the 1-1 was poor.
I
think we
know.
just need to
I
be a
thought
bit
I was
better.
better at knowledge than this, and I think I am, but just this throws me off with all the nonsense talk. So I'm going to blame you. No, but guys, let me know and let us know what you got in that round. If you got any, to be honest with you, I think this
Well
was a lot
done.
harder than last week's. To be honest with you,
Yeah,
do we need to make it a little bit easier?
Perhaps.
Should we make 3 easy questions next week?
For a nice, exciting, thrilling 3-all draw.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when 2 clubs at the bottom of the table
Yeah.
face each other. And
We'd be higher up on match of the day, wouldn't we? Yeah.
So, guys, I think that is it for the pod. Carl, have you got any last thoughts for it?
I just really want to tease next week. We've got a guest.
Of course.
We've got a guest coming on next week.
Are we allowed to announce it, or is
No,
it confirmed?
no,
we're not
no,
announcing it.
Not a word. But we have got a guest coming on next week that we're really excited about. We've got loads to get stuck into with him. Loads of questions that I want to ask him.
Yes.
I admire him a lot. And yeah, he's just a brilliant guest that we're made up to have secured, and really happy to have him on. And I'd like to thank Charlie SKEGGS and Dan Chilton for all their efforts today, and everyone for putting the questions in, the gammon thoughts. It's just brilliant. When you help us, it just means the world to us. And, every little thing that you do helps us. So it's made up with all that. Buzzing off the pod. Can't wait for next week.
Absolutely. And I agree with them thoughts. I think that the fact that Charlie came on and he was quality, I'd love to get him on again. Dan, the same again with the Warrington quotes. He's always welcome on whenever he wants to come on. It's an open book for him as well. And yeah, I do appreciate all the sort of comments. And guys, comment below what you thought of the pod. Comment below. Give it a like. Give it a subscribe. I'm not going to do the GIF right now. Is it GIF or GIF, Carl?
GIF, surely.
Or is it GIF? Is it GIF?
Gotta be GIF. No, it's gotta be GIF.
I've just frauded myself out there. But that is it for the pod. So thanks, guys, for everything. And we will see you next week, next Thursday. See you later.
See you later.